Artesia, and joining us is County Commissioner John Henry. Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Hey, it is. It's not cold in here.
Yeah, and it wasn't horrible outside. It's cold, but it's not.
Yeah,
not horrible. So
Friday at City Hall for the Veterans Day program, that wind made it kind of nippy out there. So
yeah, I felt bad for y'all because if you were in the shade, it was cold quick. But I stood out more in the sun, and
it was probably okay.
It was okay. The wind made it chilly, but it was okay with that sun on you.
Yeah,
so.
And we had a similar thing at the football game on Saturday, because the homestands would be in the shade mostly, but probably not quite in the wind where I was sitting.
Right.
On the camera deck, the wind was coming in and blowing right through that camera deck.
Oh, yeah.
So where I was sitting was the cold corner. If I'd have been on the opposite corner, the heat would have worked.
Right.
So we got to about the middle of the second quarter, and I'm like, I'm cold up here.
Yeah. And I hate being cold. My wife laughs at me. It just makes me mad. If I'm cold, I get upset. I get cranky. It is what it is. So I try to stay warm.
That's right. Best you can. Well, we have a guy on our staff who never is cold.
Right.
He doesn't like it when we turn the heat on here because it gets warm in the conference room. He doesn't turn the furnace on in his house until like January.
Yeah.
And yesterday it was cold up front, so we turned the heat on, and he didn't seem to complain about it. Then we went to lunch, and where we went to eat, it was a little cool.
Right.
I was fine. He was sitting over there. I'm cold. Is anybody else cold? And I'm like, are you okay?
Yeah. My son is one of those. He's the kid that, you see the picture of the one kid walking on college campus with flip-flops and shorts and it's snowing.
Yeah.
That will be Tanner. I'm afraid of it. Like the next meme, it could be my son. I'm like, oh, come on, man. Because now, since he's still in high school, we have some say, and no, go put on pants. It's cold outside. But I'm fine. No. So he'll be that guy. It doesn't face him one bit. Just happy as can be. So
yeah. Well, you know who was one of the folks that was like that was your predecessor, Ray Miller.
Right.
And I remember being in Taos for a state championship or semifinal football game.
Yeah.
And there's snow on the ground. Everybody is bundled up except for Ray.
Right.
He's out there in shorts.
Oh, no. He does. He's one that's, every time you see him, he's in shorts. So, I don't know why I get cold, but growing up in the mountains, I was fine. Never a big deal, but ever since I got warm, I like to be warm.
Let's stay warm.
Yes.
Well, county commissioners meet yesterday.
We did.
And, let's kind of dig into some of the interesting topics.
Absolutely. We had two quick public hearings. I say neither one of them were terribly interesting. There wasn't a lot to them. The first public hearing, it's a really long thing, so I'll just kind of sum it up real quick. But it's basically, we talked a little bit about on the radio that it was coming. It was an ordinance to basically clean up our fire services code, fire code. I couldn't think of the word. We have to do that whenever the state changes their fire code in order for us to have folks that can continue to do that. I think we have to be within 6 years of their newest version. And I think we were right on the cusp of being out. So they updated theirs. Now, what those changes mean, really, there wasn't a big change to the fire code. The two things that the state added were food trucks. Food trucks were added to the fire code to where now there's some sort of something in there to help us. Regulates probably the right word too, of making sure they have what they need to make sure food trucks are safe. The other thing is any event over 1,000 people, I guess, will have some new verbiage in there. So if you have either one of those, you might look at the new fire code.
If you have a food truck.
If you have a food truck, or if you're having an event that's over 1,000 people, you might start looking, because the state did change those. And then as of yesterday, our fire code will now match theirs, which makes sense to me. I mean, I would think you would want consistent fire code across the board. So if you have an event here and or a food truck and you run over to Chavez County or Otero County or wherever you're going, the consistency I would think would be very helpful for everybody. So that's a good thing. We got that done. Like I said, there wasn't a whole lot to it. The other really good thing that's exciting for the Artesia side is the Desert Willow subdivision. If you've seen it, it is up kind of in the northwest corner of it's by Savannah and Ritchie and right past the golf course.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it. Past the apartments, there's a new subdivision going in there. Not the one going in next to Fletzy.
I was going to say
It's the
not
one that's
that-
in the county.
Okay.
So you would go, like I said, towards that Savannah Road, past the golf course, past the apartment complex, going down like you were going out towards
The shooting
Fletzy shooting range. So it'll be out there. It's 80 acres. It's 61 lots. The average lot is about an acre to a little bit bigger than an acre, but they all have to be at least an acre. So the final plat got approved on that. If anyone has been driving around and kind of looking at the development happening around, that's one that I've been watching for a while because they've been working on it for a long time, and looks like they've done an outstanding job. The roads look really, the pieces they have in place, they're not quite finished completely, but what they have in place looks like it's going to be really nice. And looking at the plat, it'll be a good place if somebody's looking for those acre lots that we don't have a ton of them within town or close to town for folks to get. So that got approved yesterday. Like I said, and we said it yesterday, we appreciated their patience. The county hasn't done a lot of subdivisions over the years, so there was some learnings on both sides, and I think because of it and because they were such a good group to work with, it was helpful for us. And hopefully helpful for them. Hopefully we'll get some more things done.
Did that fall into what sometimes is called an extraterritorial zone around Artesia?
Did. Yes.
So does the city of Artesia?
The city did have to do some, but really the city's piece is really small. They don't have to do a final plat. They don't have to do anything like that. They have to do some of the preliminary work, but a lot of it really is going to fall on the county.
Okay.
But yes, the city did have a small piece that was early on in it. So we're probably talking, April time frame is probably when the city, or before, when the city was sort of involved. But the city got its pieces, works with the county to make sure we're both comfortable with how it's going to work, and then they pass it to the county to finish it. So
okay.
Yeah.
And then do they, as people build out there, do they tie into City of Artesia services or county services, or how will that work?
With the 1 acre lots, I think they're going to have septic on all of it.
Okay.
But we do have city water that'll run out there. So
okay.
That was a tie-in from the city's portion, since it's so close. So we'll get that city water, which will make that helpful. I mean, there's a lot of folks that are struggling with water, and we're
having to
in pretty
drill
good shape.
poke a bunch of holes for water.
Exactly.
Is
Yeah.
you tie into the city water, but they'll do their own under county regulation.
Yes.
The other aspects of it. So
yeah. So, but
Okay.
it looks real good. Real excited to have anything like that anytime. I mean, we've talked about development for quite some time. Obviously, as a city, we're working really, really hard to entice developers and get some development going within the city. But obviously, that one touches the city. I mean, its corners nearly the city. So it'll help our citizens. It'll help what we're trying to get accomplished. So always glad to see that kind of stuff growing
Move
and
forward,
moving.
so. Okay.
Yeah. So those were the first 2 public hearings. Like I said, neither one of them were incredibly exciting as far as a lot to discuss, but the second one was very exciting because we like to see that development. Carlsbad's done it a little bit more than us, but even up there in the county, like I said, this was one of our first ones. So countywide, it's good to see that the growth, what we're getting accomplished. So some of the other things we talked about that are kind of interesting, we've talked about that Arrowhead study quite a bit on the radio. It's been a tool that we have used for years now. We've had 2 studies at this point, and man, they've been really effective in helping us get our message out there, whether it be to legislatures or even like we've talked about when we call it Take the Show on the Road, when we're going to other cities, other school boards, whoever will let us talk to hear what great things oil and gas is doing. Now, the first study, if anyone remembers, was kind of to show that, hey, we're sending a lot of money to the state. You're not sending quite as much back. And we wanted to show that discrepancy. The second one was more to show, hey, look at the counties that are actually producers in the state and look at who's not. And if y'all remember, it's pretty shocking that at that time, I think there was only 4 or 5 counties that actually contribute. Mm-hmm. So out of 30... now I've lost a blank. Is it 38 or 33? 33, right? out of all the counties, 30-something counties, I don't know how I've lost that, but it's 33, isn't it?
This is my map going back to COVID, you know?
Yeah. So 30-something counties, only
Yeah.
about 4 or 5 of them contribute. All the rest take from what we contribute.
Sure.
And if you look at per capita, Eddy and Lee County, per capita, we were about 100,000 to 101. I think Lee, we were ahead of Lee by we were the 101, they were 100,000 per capita that contribute to the state budgets. And then when you drop down to like number 3, it dropped all the way to like 24,000. So it was a significant, even out of those top 4 or 5 that contributed, there was a significant drop pretty fast from 1, 2 to 3 and on. So
I'm guessing Bernalillo County was probably on the list, but they have such a large population
Right.
that the per capita would be affected by that. Doñana County with Las Cruces, maybe.
yeah, no, they were a take.
They were a take.
They were a take.
Wow,
So
okay.
you had Eddy, Lee, Sandoval, I think, was on there, which is, of course, still had at that time has a little bit of that oil and gas type revenue up there.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Los Alamos,
yeah.
was one of the 4, and I can't remember the 5th, but I think Sandoval might not be there anymore.
Which is Bernalillo in that area.
Yeah,
And
they might be one that, and that's kind of
that's
what
interesting. Yeah.
Yes, so that's kind of what we were doing yesterday, is talking about that, and we're going to update that, because I do think with everything that's changed in like a Sandoval County, we're curious, what does that make up now? Are they still a giver or a taker, or what? How is the shakeup now? Because that's been 2+ years that we did the last study. So we did approve some monies yesterday to go ahead and update that, get us some fresh new numbers to make sure what we're talking about is accurate. Did we grow? Did we shrink? Where are we at? So really excited to see how quickly we can get that, number one, but also what is it now showing us? What's the new numbers? What's the
Yeah.
new outlook for the state? And then we'll continue to take that. And I really think the best way to take that, a lot of legislatures up north and Don and Anna, they're not super interested sometimes, because they want to do what they want to do, and that's fine. But if we can make their cities, their city government, and their school boards understand that, hey, the decisions your representatives are making in legislature is really affecting the monies that might be coming to your school, because obviously oil and gas contribute a significant amount of the budget to our schools. Artesia understands that. Carlsbad understands that. Roswell understands that. A lot of folks have no idea. We talked to one of the city managers of a major city that when he looked at it, he was shocked at how much of his revenue came from the oil and gas industry, because the state gave it back. They have nothing to do with oil and gas, but
Sure. But that's where the revenue came from. Well, it's going to be interesting because we have a new congressman that's representing Eddy County and the 2nd Congressional District. Artesia is now part of a new congressional district, so
Right.
has a new congresswoman, if you will. The governor's been reelected for another term.
Right.
So it would be great to have this updated information so they could be available to these folks that are either new to Congress or new to this area, or maybe need to get some updated information
Right.
As they're getting ready to spend it all.
Yeah. Well, and it's important they understand it, because if you look, most of our congressional delegation are not oil and gas friendly.
Right.
I don't think that's a surprise to anyone. I mean, they've come out and said they're not oil and gas friendly, basically. So
Right.
we need to help them understand, okay, that's fine, but here's how it affects the folks that you represent, and y'all need to understand that. You can there's a lot of things we can talk about, but if you take this away, how are they going to get electricity? How are they going to get the number one, what are you going to do for schools? How are y'all going to fund schools to make sure? Because if you look, and we've said it a number of times, New Mexico spends quite a bit towards schools. They really do. We're closer to the top on spending. Now, what we get is obviously the bottom, and
Right.
so there's some sort of disconnect within there. But it's not the money piece that they keep saying. Well, we need more money. Well, we're already pretty high in spending, and we're getting a weird product. So, where do we help? And I think there's
Right.
probably some schools that I would put any of our schools down here up to listen to them. I think we've got a lot of things done right, but it's the New Mexico product that is suffering, and how come? And so, if y'all want to take oil and gas and do something, well, how are you going to replace all this stuff?
Right.
You're already talking about how we need more money for the schools. If you take this one component away, there is no more money.
Right.
You know, the permanent fund will only last so long. I was disappointed to see that they're going to be able to get into that. They don't need it. They have no business in it, but they're going to.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't have a plan to change from our where we're already spending and our output. So what are y'all going to do different to make us go from the bottom? And some people say, "Oh, y'all are wrong. It's not 51. We don't have that many states. You're an idiot." Okay, well, they now count Washington D.C.
Right.
We're behind them.
The District
so,
of Columbia.
Yeah. So we're behind them, and so there is 51 for some reason now.
Yeah.
And I get there's only 50 states, but regardless, even if you're at 50, you're going to celebrate that. I mean, so. All right, pretend some folks are wrong when we say that. We're still at the bottom, and that's unacceptable in my opinion. We've been there too long.
Yeah.
That's a failure to our kids, and that shouldn't be, because there's some great educators and some great administration that have great ideas, and for whatever reason, they're being sidelined for politics. And I think we're missing the boat, but we have got to get something better.
Well, it's good that the Arrowhead study gets updated anyway, because at some point in time, people are going to look at it and go, well, this is like 4 years old or 3 years old
Absolutely.
or whatever. And so having current data would be very,
Yeah.
very helpful. We need to take a break and talk more about County Commission news when we come back. Commissioner John Henry is with us.